Stranger Stories. This happened sometime in 2011. I had been married for a little over a year and had given birth to my son a couple months prior. I was 23 and had just started working in a hospital while I took classes to finish my degree and hopefully apply for the police academy. I had met one of the security guards named Joe a few times, as I frequently assisted in the ER with various tasks. As I got to know him, I learned he was a veteran and also applying to police academies. We exchanged numbers as he offered to help me train and give me pointers for the physical portion of the police test, since I was out of shape after having a baby. One day, while talking to him, I mentioned how the place I study at while on break was so loud, and I wish I could find a quiet place to sit. He offered to give me a tour and show me all the hidden places employees would use. It was a Sunday, so the hospital was quiet. We walked around, and he showed me some excellent quiet areas I could study at. He then offered to show me where the helipad was. I said I will be happy to see it. We went through areas that were blocked for most staff. As we climbed the stairs and got closer to the roof, I started to get anxious and felt my stomach drop. It was such a terrible feeling. I never experienced such weird pain before. I couldn't explain it. I felt fear as we got closer. I'll admit I'm afraid of heights and thought maybe that was it. When we got on the roof, the fear got stronger, but it was directed towards Joe, not the height. Something was off, and I had this feeling that at any moment he might try to push me over the edge of the building. I just had to get out of there. I wasn't sure how, but I was pinned to the edge. Joe looks at me, smiles, and begins walking towards me. I had all kinds of thoughts running through my mind, thinking, this is the end. When out of nowhere, my phone rings. My coworker wanted to know where I was and if I'd be back soon to help her with something. I told Joe people were looking for me and I had to get back right away. He backed off. After that day, I avoided Joe at work and would only keep text messages short. Joe didn't lay off the texts, asking me at times what I was wearing. I told him it was extremely inappropriate and reminded him we were both married. One of my coworkers, Stan, asked me what was going on. I explained everything and told him I was scared to report him because he was part of security. After that, Stan walked me to my car every night I worked and tried to spend as much time close to me as possible, since we had the same shifts together. After a while, Joe noticed I was never alone and stopped bothering me. A few months later, I found out he was fired for harassing another girl who had the courage I didn't have to report him. I feel bad that I didn't speak up at the time, and someone else had to experience what I have. I'm still thankful it all ended in this way. I'm not sure I want to even think about what else could have happened there on that roof.
So, I used to be a security officer at a homeless shelter earlier this year. I worked there for 5 months before leaving. I have tons of creepy and scary stories from my time there. Maybe I'll get to those later. So, back in March, I was at work doing what I needed to do. On the ground floor was a daytime-only homeless shelter, and on the top was a government homeless outreach office. This is who my contract was through, but I had to keep the entire building secure, even though the shelter was a different organization. The government office was the mental health branch, so it wasn't uncommon for crazy people to, well, act crazy. The place I was positioned at was laid out like a doctor's office, and I was posted in the lobby. This particular day, an individual came up to pick up his medication. The man took the medication and walked over to the couch that sits in the office. After sitting down, the guy starts digging through his backpack and pulls out a bag full of white pills. This instantly catches my attention. He grabs his pocket knife, doesn't open the blade, and smashed 3 or 4 pills, uses his hands to make the dust into 3 lines, then snorts all the dust up. What remained he swept and flung off the table. This is now considered to be acting hostile and potentially illegal. So I walk over and start trying to ask the man to leave. He keeps telling me, "I gotta take my meds." I tell him he needs to leave once again, more firm. He says out loud without looking at me, "You know, I got a suppressed 9mm in my bag that'll make you and that bitch receptionist shut up." Alarm bells start ringing all over in my head. I have a potentially active shooter scenario playing out in my hands, and I'm an unarmed officer. I calmly walk backwards to the receptionist and whisper to her to get the other client up, call 911, and go lock herself in an exam room and to not open the door. She does exactly what I say, as well as informs the other caseworkers of the situation. They all lock and barricade the doors. There are cameras in the lobby, so this was all recorded and turned over to the police. After many attempts to get the man to leave and informing him that the police were called and are on their way, the guy finally stands up and gets extremely close to my face. I could practically smell his breath. He leans in and tells me quietly, "I'm coming back for you," and storms out. The police arrive 5 minutes later. They examine the footage, put out an APB on the man, and take samples of the powder left on the table. The powder turned out to be antipsychotic medication. I still work for the same company, although, as per my request, I now work in a completely different location.